Greetings, scholars, and welcome to Chapter 3 from the Walker and Mullins Marketing Strategy, a Decision-Focused Approach textbook, 8th edition, even though the slide says 7th edition. I just didn't change it. Business strategies and their marketing implications. Again, these guys are not great at chapter titles, but the content's good. So what does all that mean? If you haven't heard of Michael Porter yet, before you get out of any business school, you're going to. Typically, or I won't say typically, but almost assuredly, you will be introduced to Porter's 5 forces. But he also did all sorts of academic research work. And these are some generic business level competitive strategies, okay? So if we're going to have a business, we're going to have a firm, maybe we decide that our main strategy is going to be overall cost leadership. Okay, and if you think to yourself, can you think of a business that operates that way today? I'll give you a minute to think about it. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. That's not quite a minute, but let's go with Walmart. Do they spend their advertising dollars indicating that they have cheap prices? Absolutely they do. So, or you could choose differentiation. You're different. You got a superior product quality. Other people may be offered the same types or categories of products as us, but ours is better. What business can you think of that operates using that strategy? 1 Mississippi. All right, I won't do that again. How about Apple? Right, the category. Let's say one of their categories is computers or phones. Do they say, oh yeah, we've got a phone just as good as the other guy? No, they say it's better. It looks better, works better, it's better quality, and that's why we want a price premium for it. And the last one on this slide of the generic level competitive strategies from Porter is focus. You may decide that you want to avoid direct confrontation with Walmart. So we might concentrate on a niche market, right? We're going to pick a niche market and we're going to go all in on that. Now, just because it's a niche market doesn't mean that it's small. Okay, you can go to Walmart and you think, well, I can find everything there. But you may go to well, let's change that example. You go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you figure you can find just about anything related to home improvement or do-it-yourself or whatever. But, there are a lot of Ace Hardwares around. They're not typically right across the street from a Home Depot or Lowe's. And they cater to people that don't want to shop in a big box like that. They might just like to go to their neighborhood one and they'll just pick up their grass seed and, Roundup there. They're concentrating on a subset of the main market that Home Depot and Lowe's are. Or you can think, a high-end ice cream versus the Kroger brand ice cream, or you can think of a million examples. But so that's Porter. Book also mentions Miles and Snow, who also came up with a typology as a way to classify business units, and their types or their segments or titles of the typology involve prospectors, defenders, analyzers, and reactors. So we have 2 different strategies or typologies there. Miles and Snow define a prospector as a firm that focuses on growth with new products and markets. A defender concentrates on maintaining positions they already have, and they don't pay a lot of attention to new product development. An analyzer attempts to maintain a strong position in their core product market, but they're also looking around to see if they can expand into new product markets. So they may be a leader or close to a leader in a particular category, but they're not opposed to and even seek to look into other things they can do. And then reactors are just people without a plan. They're reacting. They're not proactive. They're reactive. They don't really have a clearly defined strategy. They just kind of do what they do. So both have been used and tested and researched, and they both have scholarly support, but neither is complete in and of itself, right? So what the authors do after we hit a definitional term, I've used the word typology already in this lecture, and I may use it again. It merely means a classification of types. So the Miles and Snow typology, which I'm going back now, that's a typology. And essentially it's a study or systematic classification of types, okay? So if we take Miles and Snow and Michael Porter, not the 5 Forces Michael Porter, that'll be later, or in your other class, especially in the capstone class for many of you, and we put them together. We've got Miles and Snow across the top, and we've got Porter, cost, leadership, and differentiation up and down the left. You can see if you just pick, let's say a defender. Okay, so if we go with defender, we have units primarily concerned with maintaining a differentiated position in mature markets. That would be a differentiation. With the differentiation type synced up with a defender type. If we have a cost leadership strategy and we're categorized as defender, units primarily concerned with maintaining a low cost position in mature markets. You can see how it differentiates. If we go over here to prospector, whether it's cost leadership or differentiation, primarily concerned with attaining growth through aggressive pursuit of new product market opportunities. That's what they're interested in solely. It doesn't matter whether they're following a differentiation or a cost leadership strategy. So you can see one thing you be interested in a business, if you're running a firm, is where does your firm fit? You may think, a firm's management may think they're in one category or another, and then but they take time to look at it, they may realize, we're not. We think that we're A, but really, maybe we're just reactors. Because let's say one of our SBUs is a reactor, and another is a prospector, and maybe that's the way you want it to be. Or maybe you think you're a prospector and you're really a defender. That's the usefulness of these typologies, that to assess, your firm, either your ongoing firm or maybe one you're thinking about starting. So do the same type strategies work for single business firms and startups? Maybe. Could be, depending on the business, but more times than not, no. And you could see in smaller single business firms, the distinction between business level competitive strategy and marketing strategy tends to blur. Well, why is that? Common sensely, you would think, well, yeah, I've got a small business. I've got a landscape or lawn care business, and maybe it's not that small. Maybe you got 10, 20 trucks you're running or whatever, but you don't sit and have big corporate meetings about your strategy for this type of work, this type of work. You're just kind of working on it all at the same time. And a lot of that reason is because they just don't have the resources. You know, they don't have to have separate departments that are just working on separate things. Uh, that makes it difficult for them to compete as Me Too competitors. If we were thinking about opening up a business today, a handful of us, and you say, you know, we have the real zeal for it. What kind of business? Well, let's open up a big box retailer to compete with Walmart. You probably wouldn't get a lot of takers for that. I mean, that's tough. But we might be able to start up a business to take on, you know, a local clothing retailer or something like that. So one doesn't work for the other. It could, or parts of it could, but typically there are differences, and that's just a couple of them. And oftentimes size is a cause for that. So let's talk about services for a bit. Services are different in several different ways. Here's a couple. It's hard to experience a service before the sale. In other words, I had a great funeral over there. I think my next funeral, I'm going to do business with them. Services are generally intangible, whereas goods are tangible. A haircut, it's not something that you know, you can hold in your hand like a stapler. If you're buying a stapler, you can check it out. Haircuts, you know, if they put them on sale, can you get 6 of them at once and save them? No. They're typically, I'm not typically, they're intangible versus a hard good. And the marketing mix is different. Now, we all remember the marketing mix, the classic marketing mix of product, place, price, and promotion. And you can replace price sometimes with distribution, but it's easier to remember the old school 4 Ps. So when you introduce services into it, Valerie Zeithamel, who's done a lot of work in this area, she adds people, process, and physical evidence. So she turns the 4 Ps into 7. Now, what does that mean? We should be intimately familiar with these top 4 at this stage of the game if you're taking this course. These may be relatively new. So let's see what happens if we add those in. So let's look at a bank. And I should have got rid of those squiggly lines before I cut and paste those in here. But product, right? So we got different forms of deposits, make loans, whatever. Price. What's the price of a bank? What interest they charge on loans or what interest they offer for savings products. Discounts, fees, commissions. If you do your brokerage business, you know, you do some of your investment business through them, have to be competitive. Place or distribution, have brick and mortar branches. Every bank has to have ATMs these days, sometimes just only ATMs. I mean, they may have brick and mortar banks, but they have 3 times as many ATMs. Internet banking, mobile apps, right? That's how you're meeting the customers in the marketplace. Place, and this can also be distribution. Promotion, right? So mass media, ads. Of course, I've got signs out in front of a brick and mortar bank. Direct marketing, you know, mailers, things like that. So now let's drop down to people. Bank employees, considered a prime factor in the bank selection criteria, right? What kind of business are you doing with a bank? Money business. Most people are very serious about their money business. You want your bank employees not to look like, you know, you just rounded them up from behind the local Greyhound station, right? You want them to look like people I would trust that person handling my money. Process. Do you have to triple check every deposit you make because they're always wrong? Uh, is it convenient? Because, I know Regions and Wells Fargo have branches all over. Uh, Maybe if I consider all their services equal for what I'm doing, let's say it's just a checking account and a debit card, maybe that makes a difference to me. And, is it easy? Are there long lines and various other things? Physical evidence is a highly rational part of in-banking services. Is it clean? Are the junk cars parked all around the bank? When you walk inside, is there stuff everywhere? With everybody going, man, I really need to process those transactions. Give me that stack of them. Right? It's like if you go to a doctor's office, what do you want it to look like? Clean, sanitary, well kept, that type of thing. So in the services mix, we add 3Ps to the standard marketing mix. And this is just a banking example. And if we add those 3Ps, just to make it clearer for you. So we'll come back to a concept like that in a minute, but let's talk about the internet, how that's affected businesses. The original internet was, we call it Web 1.0, where it was a unidirectional framework. The firm had a website and they controlled information on the website, and there really wasn't any place for you to give feedback or ask questions or any of that, which developed into Web 2.0, which created this bi-directional framework where we could interact with the website, leave messages, ask questions, that type of thing. And now we moved into what's called now the semantic web, where it might, have expert recommender systems on there. You're looking for something. They go, well, you see on Amazon, people that looked at this also looked at these 5 things. And they go, oh, okay. Kind of figuring out what you're looking for. So the internet has made it very easy for buyers and sellers to compare prices. You don't need to go around and look at 3 different stores for a price of a chair or the price of deodorant. Or deodorant's not a good example, something a little more pricey than that. Let's say a mattress. You could do it on the internet. It has created disintermediation, which is a big word for cutting out the middleman. Now, whether that's good or bad, it depends on what the product category is. But it has eliminated many middlemen. You could buy something directly. Let's see, you could buy a computer directly from Amazon. You don't need to go to Best Buy. If you know what you're looking for. If you need to touch one and check it out, and not really, you may want to do that. It's cut transaction costs because everything doesn't have to come through a brick and mortar location. They can just directly from the manufacturer directly to you. And it improves the functioning of the price mechanism because it's wide open. Everybody can see it. Adjustments from one can quickly be copied by another. And it has also created a concept we call mass customization. You can customize your offerings for each individual purchaser if you want to. And rather than, let's say with computers, going to Best Buy and seeing which ones they have that kind of fit most of your parameters, you could just order it directly online and get exactly the hard drive you want and the camera you want and the connectivity you want or various whatever it is. So obviously, it's greatly impacted business all over the world, and of course in the U.S. So let's talk about the previous strategies that we mentioned, which is appropriate and when. This slide gives us some rules of thumb. If you think that, well, a prospector strategy is right for us, are you in an unstable, rapidly changing environment resulting from new technology, shifting customer needs, or both? A prospector strategy then might be your primary one that you would like to pursue. An analyzer strategy. Are you concerned with both defending a strong share position that you already have in established product markets people are familiar with. But you still want to keep an eye on new product development because you know that's Apple says, well, we're in the computer business, but they kept an eye out and they went, well, look, I think maybe people are looking for some little thing they can carry around that has all their music on it. Yeah, that are phones that act like computers in their pockets and various other things, where they already had a strong position in the computer business. That's the reason they changed their name from Apple Computers, if you look at their ticker symbol, just to Apple Inc., because they didn't want to be saddled with, well, that's all we do is computers. A defender. Do you have a profitable share of major segments in a mature, stable industry? Then that might be a proper strategy for you, where the technology is not very complex, or maybe it is complex, but it's well developed, and there's really not much you can do with it. So we might want to concentrate on service and warranties and things like that. Defender strategy might be appropriate there. So if we look, just this example, factors favorable to different business strategies. So let's go with a low-cost defender. We'll go with this last one. Industry in maturity or decline stage of the product life cycle, if you remember from Principles of Marketing. Starts with introduction, right? Current offerings target all major segments, sales primarily due to repeat purchases. We've got some loyal customers, and replacing things that people already have. So again, depending on what the external factors are, the industry and the market, it's just a chart that kind of gives you an idea that you should be familiar with of how environmental factors may lead you to go one way or another. Let's go to Prospector, and we can see it lists here that it's an early growth stage of the life cycle. So we introduced it, and it was favorably responded to by the consumers, but it's in the early growth cycle. We've got many potential customer segments, but there's still some that we don't know yet. People that are going to use the product are undeveloped. So then we might want to concentrate our efforts from a prospector perspective. Prospector perspective. Say that 3 times real fast. So how might these different business strategies influence marketing? Because this is marketing strategy. So we've got the 4 P's here: product, price, place, and promotion, or distribution. Again, so if we put a P out here, then we've maintained the 4 P's. So it would impact the breadth and diversity of your product lines, how sophisticated they are, and what type of product quality level are we shooting for? Shooting for the Lexus product quality level or something less? I don't want to name a brand, so it might be what I drive. Pricing. Success in offering low prices may be positively related to the performance. Absolutely, and low price policies are inconsistent with differentiated defenders. So it affects your pricing policy depending on what sort of what part of the typology you've decided upon for your business. Distribution. I'll use an example. Prospectors are likely, remember, they're probably going to be in the early stage of the product life cycle, likely devote a larger percentage of sales to trade promotions than defenders. Defenders aren't typically going to offer big coupons, right, for a razor blade that's been on the market for 30 years. But the latest and greatest from Gillette with 48 blades and a vibrating handle and internet connectivity, they're more liable to offer trade promotions to get people to sample and hopefully adopt the new razor. And then promotion policies. Prospectors, high advertising and sales promotion. That's likely to have a positive relationship with new product and share growth success. Why? Because people won't know it's out there unless you tell them about it. So you've got something new, maybe or in the early part of the life cycle. Everybody knows that detergent exists. But when they put out the first iPod, it was a new to the world product. Nobody ever knew something like that existed, right? They grew up with 8-track tapes or cassettes or CDs at that time. And now we could carry all that on something, a little about the size of a $50. Huh. I didn't know that existed. So you have to tell people that it exists or else they might not know. All right. So that uh, concludes chapter 3, business strategies and their marketing implications. And I will see you guys again very soon on the internet.